have inspired us with TDeFi and some of the projects that are already out there, what we are now going to do in this panel is do a reality check. Answer your questions of, well, what does it really take from licensing to banking to just operational efficiencies? What works in Dubai, what doesn't, and how do we actually fix this? And we've got a panel of experts from mutual funds to VCs, as well as the regulators who are basically coming on board. So this is the space to really outshine the last panel in terms of asking your questions. Yeah?
Nice. Low competition, I like it.
There we go.
Shams, it's all yours.
I'm gonna just come on board and we'll just kick this off. Where's my mic?
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do intros as soon as, hey. Do we have a full house or are we missing somebody? James, is James here? James is not here. All right. While everybody's getting seated, I want to ask a question of the audience, really to get you guys moving. And big hint, this is a yes/no question, so you got to raise at some point. How many of you either have a crypto or blockchain company or are invested in a blockchain company? There we go. Big hint for the rest of you. That next question is a no, the opposite of the yes. How many of you don't? See, about 50% of this audience still needs to go out there and get some coffee or didn't understand the question. See, that was the trick. That's the game. All right, so look, what I'm gonna do is we have about 30 minutes and I don't want to see Hadi standing up. So what we'll do is a quick intro on this particular group that is sitting here. I've already been introduced. I'll just pass on. 2 minutes, gentlemen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saeed Al Dharmaki, founder and CEO of Sheesha Finance. I'm previously head of the MENA region for Casper Labs, co-founder of Alphabet Digital Currency Fund, and I'm advising a lot of crypto startups. I have been doing so for the last 5 years. And I've been heavily investing at an early stage in a lot of blockchain startups over the last 5 years. And I hope to share some experience and wisdom with the crowd here.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Mohammad Alblooshi. I'm the head of Fintech and Innovation at the DIFC, the Dubai International Financial Center. I've been in this space for about 5 years, done a lot of work in the startup and innovation space. And I also look after the DIFC Innovation Hub, which basically is home to 500 startups and is considered one of the leading startup hubs in the region. And again, I not necessarily directly I'm involved in blockchain or crypto, but I do spend a lot of my time with the leading minds in the space, which I'll be talking about today.
Hello, my name is Oliver von Wolff. I'm Managing Director for Crypto Oasis and Crypto Oasis Labs. We are in partnership with the DMCC for the Crypto Center in the DMCC area, and we built up the biggest blockchain and crypto ecosystem here in the UAE with over 200 companies. And I'm very happy to be part of this panel discussion today.
Hi guys, good morning. I'm Vineet. I represent Cypher Capital. A lot of you know us as Phoenix VC. The first fund was known as Phoenix VC, which invested in over 100+ projects. Now we have come up with Cypher Capital, which is a personal investment fund of $100 million, looking to invest in multiple blockchain startups, and have been coming to Agora for quite a long time and invested in each of Agora's conferences. First one was, I think, Casper, then we invested in Across the Ages, and hopefully we do an investment today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Look, Dubai, of course, is already well established in terms of reputation of embracing trends, and none so better than blockchain and crypto. And we've all heard about how well regulation is doing, but I really want to start with the mutual funds and the VCs in the group. So Saeed and Vineet, question for you guys. What really are the challenges that you've experienced in setting up or seeing some of the companies that you guys are sponsoring and mentoring setting up in Dubai? Where do regulations and bankings, for example, and licensing really have issues?
Great question. I think the biggest challenge for most startups in general, never mind blockchain startups, is usually in Dubai is usually banking. But even more so for crypto startups, I think, getting that actual bank account attached to your company is something which takes time, effort, money, and can be quite challenging. But I think apart from that, I think the environment is very well set up in Dubai to support startups in coming here. But I think it's also getting acclimatized to the culture and the environment here, and the way things are done here is slightly different to the West. But I think it's very much westernized here in Dubai. But all these things can be tricky at times, but I think the biggest issue is banking.
So personally, we advise a lot of startups to come to Dubai. In fact, some of them have already become part of CBVC, the Crypto Valley. I think the issues that we face is the license types. So, everyone is not just a coder, or everyone's not just a trader as such. And these are the two licenses available. In fact, there are new license categories that are coming up, like the NFT license and maybe the mining license. So I think there has to be a broader thought on what are the things that can DeFi be applicable, because that is technically collecting a lot of money from people. So licensing has to be thought out more broadly. And secondly, as Sayed mentioned, banking is a big issue in either it being a startup or as well as a blockchain startup. Getting if you say you're a crypto startup and you want to get bank accounts, seriously, that's a direct no. So something that has been done on that aspect is Seba Bank actually launching up at ADGM, where you can set up a banking account, and I think CBVC has also partnered with them. But again, the local banks in Dubai have to be with the vision of the government and get going with that. So,
Oliver and Mohammad, what are your thoughts on the fact that these are known issues? They've been around for a while, and I think at every event we talk about this. And Vineet just mentioned that there is something that you guys are doing at CBVC Labs, and I know you and I had a chat yesterday about what's happening with regulation on this. Can you shed some light?
Please. First of all, I think at least for the DMCC, we are quite far with developing licenses, and it's an ongoing process. So of course, we started with the proprietary trading license, we had then the DLT license, and meanwhile, since January, we have an NFT and a metaverse license. So we are trying to following, let's say, the demand on the market, and thanks God to the DMCC leadership, we are here very progressive. Of course, startups facing all over the world, most likely the same problems. What I can say in generally about Dubai or the DMCC, we have a very positive environment. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter to which kind of free zone you're going. Everyone is interested to support you and to helping you. So I don't think this is a question. We have in Dubai, we have capital, we have human capital, what is very important. And also we have excellent infrastructure, especially built up over the last years. So I think the frame criteria are very positive. So now facing startups, different problems like opening a bank account, same can be happening in Europe as well. Of course, here in, let's say in the UAE, the local banks are very conservative about this because there is no regulation at the moment by the SCADAN. I know they're working on this. Yeah, but principally, at least for us in the DMCC, we have a kind of agreement that we also can onboard companies in the crypto center who have a bank account by a foreign bank. In this case, most likely we're using Swiss banks. And there's one good example, Seba Bank, but also there are like one or two other banks who are interested to onboard blockchain or crypto companies. So there's always a barrier, and there's also always a little hole in the barrier, and you just have to be consistent to go through this little hole. And the end, I think generally we have a very positive environment here.
Great. I think probably we need to look at a little bit, we need to go back and look at it from a bank's perspective. Why is a bank reserved when it comes to opening up bank accounts for any crypto businesses? Now, just before I move on to that, there was a lot of challenges that SMEs generally face for opening up bank accounts. And I think recently it has been tackled by the likes of Emirates Development Bank, where again, the Ministry of Economy did some amazing work with them, and now they're open up. Actually, any startup can open up a bank account within 48 hours, and we've tested this ourselves, and it works. But still, there is some conservativeness towards opening up a bank account for a crypto business. And I'll tell you why, because the local banks, and I think to their credit, they're conservative because they don't know how their regulator will respond to it, which is the UAE Central Bank. You cannot open up, they can't do business or they cannot accept business until they have the blessing of their regulator, which is the UAE Central Bank. Now, if we look at UAE, how the UAE regulatory framework is designed, you have 3 regulators that can actually regulate financial services as per the federal law. You've got the UAE Central Bank and ESCA, of course, I'll consider them one, who actually regulate anyone and everyone that operates on mainland UAE and under the federal law. And then you've got ADGM, FSRA regulates financial services entities in ADGM, and you've got the FSA. These are the 3 bodies that can only regulate financial services activities. And as of today, out of the 3, the only one that actually has a regulatory framework on crypto exchanges is actually FSRA. We, as the DIFC, we have regulations around investment tokens. We should soon have our basically regulations around crypto exchanges and crypto in any form. But within March, I think we're planning to publish a consultation paper, which should be soon materialized as well. But I think the approach has been that as these regulatory frameworks develop, it's not about just creating a regulatory framework. It should actually help startups. It should actually help companies. We've seen across the region, regulators basically coming up with regulatory frameworks, but that actually does nothing for you. You still go to a bank and the bank is not willing to work with you, or you still, I mean, and we've seen companies actually sitting on in-principle approvals for years. Now that's something we want to avoid. Yes, there are challenges, but if we look at Dubai and UAE in general, over the past 12 months, there has been a huge amount of focus, and the direction is very clear from the leadership that this is something that we want to have. We need to work on it. So the Ministry of Economy and the leadership of Dubai are pushing towards it. There are a lot of frameworks that are involved, both on a federal level and the local level, because there's a lot of reputational risk as well involved. If we start regulating, we want to make sure that nothing go, I mean, we preserve our reputation. So that's why the challenge, and I understand from the bank's perspective why they are a bit reserved, is because their own regulator hasn't come up with regulations. So how can you work with something which their own regulator doesn't approve?
This is the reality on the ground right now. I guess a question that I have for all of you is, you know, with that reality, we still see lots of companies. There's no denying that there's a huge influx of crypto projects coming and wanting to establish themselves in Dubai. How many of these do you see that they come, they're established here, but all of that financing, all of the banking still goes on outside of Dubai? And what do you see in terms of risks, realities, and do you see anything changing in regards to that?
So I'll be happy to take that. So we've actually seen, I mean, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. I've spoken to everybody probably in the crypto space, and everyone has shown interest to be in Dubai. Clearly there is a market, clearly there is demand. All the leading crypto exchanges have their regional HQs in Dubai, be it in the DIFC, in ADGM, and DMCC, wherever it is. But this is where they put their regional HQs. Oasis has more than 200 people over here. Rain is hiring, is actually regulated in Bahrain, but they're hiring everybody in Dubai because they know this is where they can find talent. Binance is moving hundreds of people to Dubai because they know this is where they want to be, and this is where the regulatory frameworks are expected to be developed, and this is where they can find talent. So from an overall community perspective, it's very clear that this is where it's a progressive market. There's a lot of demand. Yes, there are some challenges from the regulatory perspective, but all of that is being worked upon.
Yeah, I think you know, I think the banking side of things, there's always a way around it. So like Oliver said, you know, partnering with SIBA Bank and other European banks or even American banks that actually facilitate crypto, banking or transactions, you'll always find the options. You don't have to have your bank account here. I don't think, if you're dealing with customers globally, which most crypto companies are, then, and most likely you'll be kind of taking in USDT or crypto and paying out USDT or crypto most of the time. Sometimes you'll have bills that you have to pay for normal expenses and so on. But there's always a way around these things. And I think as long as you want to be here and you want to set up here and you have the right advice and you have the right team and the right people behind you, then I think you can make it happen.
Just to add to that, startup founders always find out a way. I remember this big OTA in India, which set up an office in Dubai, and it claimed that office to be as a marketing part of it. So, you can actually set it up in Singapore with the banking and set up a branch office over here as a backend office. So, there are solutions to everything if you go to find it out. Banking is, again, if we are really crypto, then I think we all know that we trade on the wallets rather than a bank account. So I don't think that's a major critical issue. And again, I started with a lot of negative on what are the challenges, but overall, when we look at Dubai, it has had a lot of positive. That's why these companies and these founders have been here. There was an article in Economic Times, that's India's biggest business daily, which said that all the Indian tech startups, crypto startups are taking flight to Dubai because regulation is very clear. When Dubai wants to do something, it just does it. While in India, the cryptocurrency bill has been taking 1.5 years to just discuss. It's not really finalized as well. So the positives definitely outweigh here. There are some challenges here and there, which I think will get resolved as we go on. It's always there. It's a new industry. It's growing. So.
Yeah, I think one very important point we missed, this is the adoption or the possibility of adoption to an economy. So it's always nice talking about licenses and regulation and deregulation, even in some countries, but at the end, government also have to implement the regulations in their, let's say, framework. And actually, we had the big luck here with the DMCC that we get this cooperation. So finally, CO Labs brings that the know-how, and the DMCC, the environment. But if we look to other, for example, free zones who don't have this kind of innovative cooperation, so how they want to adapt it. So we need people here, and of course it's nice talking about the big players in the markets when they're coming to Dubai. But what is really important for developing the ecosystem and the economy here in Dubai is to get as much as possible startups and small companies, because they are most likely the technology-driven companies. They're bringing the changes to the market, and they also bring the know-how to the market. And then in a further way, of course, we need the adoption then from the governments, in-government organization and authorities. But I see it on the same way. Dubai have done in the past a great job, and I have no doubt this regulation will come to the right moment.
Yes, thank you, all of you. Every event that we go to, we hear the same things in terms of the issues. And Vineet, as you summarized, and the rest of you added as well, it's a crypto project, and you need to be creative. And as Mohammad mentioned, this is the realities. The regulations are going to, pave the way, and the banks are going to follow to protect us. We need to be able to be creative in terms of how we make sure that our startups are operational. I do want to ask another question. In events, we always talk about regulations, we talk about banking, we talk about licenses, but this is a discussion about reality check. What's, in your experience, between the 5 of us, we have so much experience of helping companies start up. What are the real operational tips and challenges that you will advise the audience about watching out for? What's the real headaches? And then we all know the good stuff. What's the real headaches that you want to advise them against?
I think having the right structure and having the right kind of business model and knowing exactly what you want to achieve wherever you set up, that's very important. Having the right strategy and also being able to pivot or innovate, like you said, being creative or innovative. And I think this industry is one of the most innovative industries that I've been with. And I think most people here who have invested or who have started up companies, they always find a way around things. But if you don't react in the right way, or if you're not proactive, or if you don't kind of think about what the future can hold or what the future obstacles can be, then I think that's a problem. So I think having a clear vision, having a clear strategy, Having the right team, having clear objectives is always going to put you in good stead.
I think from my perspective, it's very important to understand your market and the market that you operate in, because each market is different than the other. And I think, I mean, there's so many startups coming up. I'll give you a number. Last year alone, we attracted 250 startups. Now we know not all of them will be successful. I think it's very important people to understand how the ecosystem is taking shape. And also recently there has been this, one might say that it's easy to raise funds because a lot of VCs and a lot of family offices have been pumping a lot of liquidity into the market. But I think VCs for startups, it's very important to know and understand that it's only a few that make it. So you need to know, and you need to be unique in your proposition. And I think the biggest requirement, or the biggest, one of the biggest challenges, other than the challenges that we spoke of, I think is talent. As much as Dubai is a hub for talent, I spend 90% of my time with tech companies, and each and every one of them highlights the requirement for talent, being able to talent. Although a lot of them, they set up in Dubai to be able to acquire talent, but because the demand level is so high, the supply is still low. So being able to attract the best talent and being able to hire, I think that's something which we collectively need to work towards and shape. I think it has been highlighted on very high levels, and it's not something that we can solve in a year or 2 years' time. It's going to take longer than that, but that is a very important space to look into and to shape as well.
Yeah, startups always facing a lot of challenges depending on the team and of the idea and vision of the startups. But principally, I would be focused that the startup has a clear business case. Yeah, it's nice having vision and dreams, but at the end, they must be executed. So here, the focus should be on the one side, on the business case, on the business plan, yeah, and on the other side, to be focused with what kind of people I work together, what kind of people I'm hiring. It's most likely a big issue for startups here in Dubai, that they need long time to find the right people, yeah, and then also to execute at the end. And there are a lot of, let's say, smaller challenges than between to find the office, the right place, to find the right partners, and all these kind of things. We are partly have the opportunity to help startups with this, and we're trying to give recommendations sometimes. But principally, I think that's are the main challenges for startups.
So I've run startups for 15 years before the VC. I think one of the things that I saw in the startup scene, and I also see it over here, is that people were obsessed with raising funds there. And here everyone's obsessed with the token price. Now, my issue is that, I think these startups should focus on building the bloody business. Because when you build something which is valuable, people will come and hold your token, or people will come and invest in you. So the focus on business becomes critical. And what makes a business successful is the people, getting the right people, the people who won't run away when the business sinks, because business has its shit times and good times, and you need to get those people who will steer the ship clear when shit hits the fan. So one is getting the right people, getting the right backers, because investors are very key. When things go down, some of the investors actually come in, and whether it's about the moral support or whether it's the cash support, that is important. And being open to change. A lot of times companies came up with an idea and pivoted to something which became much bigger. So BitMEX is an example. I was part of SOSV, which had invested in me. BitMEX had come up with some other idea and ended up becoming something else, and it was a $5 billion company at one time. So being open to change is also critical. So these are my parameters, I would say, one should look at.
We have a few minutes before I pose a grenade into this panel. I want to ask, does anybody in the audience have questions? Do we have questions in the audience that they want to ask this group? All right, well, I've never seen this panel. We do have, all right, hold on to your questions. Let's get a mic over. Here's my grenade. I'm not accustomed to seeing this group all in agreement and not debating with each other. So there was a question that was asked when I came in by somebody. And it really comes down to what Saeed, you and Mohammed, you were talking about. It's very important to know where to set up, aside the other things, the strategy, the talent, and all the stuff that you asked. And the gentleman who was asking me the question, he's like, you know, in Dubai, we have DMCC, we have DIFC, we have so many of these zones. And then I could also go mainland. And what did they say? There's DWTC that is also coming into the race. And he was like, how do I choose? Where do I set up? And I don't see anywhere any advice as to why I would go to one place versus the other. So there you go, Oliver and Mohammed.
Well, I mean, this is what I mean, that people have to know a clear picture about their business model and what they really want to reach. So, and a lot of people, we have over 1,400 companies in the pipeline who have been applied over the last 3 months in the DMCC for a license. And a lot of them, they have not a clear vision about what they really want. So our first conversation with them is most likely about their goals, to specify them. And very often we also have to say, look, I mean, the business, what you want to do, it's at the moment not licensed. There's no regulation for this when it comes to exchange or brokerage, for example. And on the other way as well, if it's like a regulated business, then we also have to send them away sometimes. Yeah, so it is really, I would say, we as CEO Labs with the DMCC, our interest is really to develop the ecosystem in the DMCC and to give the companies the right advice. Let's put it this way, even we are not a legal company, but I see often coming people exactly with this problem. They're completely confused about their lawyers because every lawyer gives them just a different advice. And this is what I mean just 5 minutes ago, that people should be very careful about choosing their partners, yes?
So I think my take on this one is people should understand how do they define their business. If your business is a financial services business, if that's how you define it, and that's how it's defined globally, then you need to get a license from a financial services regulator. Now, as I said, it could be Securities and Commodities Authority, which is the federal regulator, or the DFSA at the DIFC, or FSRA, if you are a financial services business. If you're not, then again, there are all different type of free zones. Then you look at wherever the ecosystem is developed well, and wherever you want to be based. If the ecosystem actually helps you, then you go and be there. And I think Dubai does this, Dubai has done a great job from a clusterizing and from an ecosystem development perspective. So then you choose wherever is the best place for you. But if you are actually a financial services regulator or a financial services company, then technically you need to be licensed by a financial regulator.
Vineet and Saeed, from the other side, I can already see Vineet chuckling.
So I was a cost-effective startup founder. For me, I think costs are always critical. That's why when I set up in Dubai, my startup, I went to In5. In fact, probably a startup which is just starting up and bootstrapping it up, paying 150 or 200,000 dirhams becomes a bit more tough. I think CV Labs, In5 are places which actually subsidize these startups. So I think cost is also critical, other than all the verticals and everything. I understand that part as well, but one needs to look at the cost as well, right?
So yeah, I think maybe I'll give an example of Sheesha Finance. So the way we did it was we did our own research into all the different free zones and all the different jurisdictions globally, not just in Dubai. Obviously, I'm from the UAE, so I would want to get business happening in the UAE. So it was a preference, but when it came to actually issuing a token, we couldn't do it in the UAE because there's no kind of token issuance license, or there's no kind of clear crypto utility token regulation out there at the moment. So what we did was the operation side of what we wanted to do operationally was set up in the DMCC as a distributed ledger technology company. And then the fund and the token issuance entity is in the BVI, which is a jurisdiction that's pretty forward thinking and good with token issuance and everything. So there was other options, but eventually we went with what our lawyers and our legal advisors told us would be the best options. They gave us all the different options and we chose the ones that we felt was most suitable to what we want to do. So I think doing your own research and getting proper legal advice and structuring advice is the best way forward.
Thank you, guys. We have a question. I saw that hand go up first, lady in the first desk. Do we have a mic? Or if you start, okay, there we go.
Thank you.
That's fancy.
Hello, everybody. Greta Sopkita, Gap Management Fund, Gibraltar. 2019, we started with DIFC as a fintech company, but we moved into the financial waters and ended up in Gibraltar. So I'll say hi for you after. Thank you for all the help in the beginning. I have a question which I think Sheesha Finance would also massively benefit from knowing. Is the DIFC working on the crypto fund licensing framework? Because essentially, if the company is financial/crypto, that would so much ease up life for everybody, because and for investors, it would be very clear investment where they invest. And for the fund type of structures, which now have to go to BVI or Gibraltar and then have another company somewhere, put along the way to actually facilitate it within the legal environment. And every lawyer, of course, says something else. So it's a minefield, basically. Are you working on something like this?
So as of now, the regulations are not there. As of now, the only regulations that that we have are for investment tokens. In a couple of weeks now, as far as I know, it should be the first week of March. We should have our consultation paper out, which covers crypto exchanges, crypto payments, and crypto funds as well. That should be out by the first week of March. It goes out for consultation for a period of a month. So we take feedback from the community, and then we actually put in the regulatory framework. Now, as I said, only a couple of, so it's approved by the board. It should be out in a couple of weeks, and then everybody over here can look into it and provide their comments.
Okay, great. If we can contribute, happily. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, or I'm going to give it to that table over there. Can we pass the mic on to this? Yeah, I promise to move to another table after this. This is not very COVID friendly, but.
Thank you very much for a really inspiring talk. Samir Safar Ali, I'm a financial services regulatory lawyer, but not representing anyone here today. I've been in the region for 8 years, focusing on reg and focusing on fintech. And just to share some thoughts in terms of the reality check. So I would say, number one, in terms of tech companies, what I've seen, whether it's a big tech or a small tech, looking to get into the DeFi space, the blockchain space, whether it's when it's dealing with financial services, is a philosophical shift from a tech company to having a regulatory mindset, whether it's on the AML side, the governance side, cybersecurity side, etc. That's one of the interesting reality issues I've seen. Pre-seed and seed, in terms of Dubai bringing together really, the minds to develop the system, I find that at the pre-seed and seed stage, there might need to be some sort of governmental initiatives to help with that, because we have regulatory sandboxes that help to propel startups. But one of the issues with reg sandboxes is you need to be already in growth stage. So how can you be in growth stage to raise capital before you need to have a license in order to reach out to get customers. And you can't get customers until it's like a chicken and egg sort of situation. So I think on the pre-seed and seed stage, governments could do more there. And my final comment is to do with what I think the regulators playing catch up. I mean, this is a global thing. It's not a Dubai specific issue. But when we look at, for example, a project that is based on a DAO, whether that DAO is a security or not, we look at traditional tests in the States, for example, the Howey test, whether something is a security or not. And on that point, I think whether you're a company or whether you're a regulator, looking back just at traditional concepts, whether on the valuation of a crypto project or looking at traditional economics in terms of what the token price should be, or whether you're a regulator, just looking at traditional regulatory concepts and seeing whether the innovative can fit within these existing parameters. Just some thoughts for discussion.
I saw two questions there. It's one on,
I'll take the first part.
Yeah, go for it.
So the first part, which is actually on the regulatory sandboxes, completely agree. I think it could have been, can be a bit more lighter, but I think we need to understand the regulators' concerns as well. The sandbox usually requires for a company to be post MVP. That's because you cannot test a financial services product until you're operational. Now, I do understand from a startup perspective that for you to get to a post MVP, you at least need some funding. So that's an area I think we need to look at and address. But however, I think the regulator also have a fair concern.
And I think around government initiatives, there are government initiatives. I know in Abu Dhabi, there's the Khalifa Fund, which supports SMEs and startups. But I think if you're serious about setting up your own company, I think you have to put money on the line. You have to put your own money in before you go out and take money from other people. Because the first question I will ask if somebody wants an investment is, how have you funded your project so far? And if the founder says he hasn't put any money into it, then that's a red flag for me. So I think you have to build your way up. And there are ways you can get there to be at a level where you can raise money for like a MVP, but you don't even have to have an MVP. You can have a proof of concept and you can have a very good idea and you can gather strong people with strong backgrounds with you. And that should make it a bit easier for you.
So Singapore and
we-
China.
Hadi, I was avoiding Hadi getting up. He's now frantically walking here and there. So I do think if anybody, I know there were a few more hands, we will be outside.
Here,
I've seen
here,
you.
here.
Seen
I
you.
have you in mic with me.
No, I got to cut. Hadi's gonna, kick my ass outside. So Saeed, Mohammad, Oliver, Vineet, thank you very much. Questions, whenever there's a break, we'll be outside. All right?
Fantastic panel, as always. Let's do a photograph. That was a great.